17, whatever percentage every time that ticket resells. So they don't want to enforce the Bots Act necessarily because they're making more money off it. No, the artists don't see any of that money, but that's not what I'm advocating for. Is for me to make more money. I want the fans to have fair ticket prices, be able to go enjoy more shows. I know people that they decide on a family vacation or going to their favorite concert once a year rather than, my parents used to go see multiple shows when you could afford them back in their day. And I'd like to take my ticket prices lower, but if I set my ticket prices low, these bots immediately eat them up and they resell for hundreds of dollars more, and I'm just making these bad actors rich.
Well, I think this is a big step to getting it stopped. Do you have something, Brian?
Yeah, I do actually. I actually feel that the consumer is going to take the money that they saved and actually buy merch, which you guys have a big percentage of, or do concessions, which you guys split with the venue on that as well. So I think their money goes
for
further.
Concessions a lot.
No,
those are, we try to, but they don't want to share it in the beer prices and parking or any of that stuff. But the bottom line is there's money for everyone to be made. There's plenty of money to go around. No one's going to really lose here. Ticketmaster, if we can get a cap, they're going to lose some money. But I've already talked to the CEO, Michael. He's given me his word. He's on board for it.
I was talking to Jacoby with Papa Roach earlier, and by the way, he's a big fan of what you're doing, President Trump, digging into this whole scalping and the bots. A lot of musicians, and you can say that they're with Kid Rock, sir, on this, without a doubt.
A lot of people are.
President Trump, would you ever wear a jacket like that?
I don't know. I was thinking about doing it for tomorrow. We have a big event coming up, and I was thinking about doing it, but I'm not sure.
So you recently bought a Tesla for White House staff to use, but now there's all these domestic terrorists targeting Teslas. Are the staff scared to drive it?
I don't think so. I haven't heard. They weren't complaining. I did buy one, and I let the staff use it. We have it parked conveniently, and one day we give it to Margot, one day we give it to Chamberlain, give it to Natalie, we give it to everybody around, give it to Dan Scavino, but he's got so much money it doesn't matter. But they love the car, and it's a great car, and it's made here, it's made in the country. He's got a tremendous plant now in Texas, and he has one in California. He does a lot of his work here, and he's been really unfairly treated, in my opinion.
I drive him.
And
yeah.
There's this other story. I know it's hypothetical right now, but if you were allowed for some reason to run for a third term, is there a thought that the Democrats could try to run Barack Obama against you?
I'd love that.
For his third term?
Boy, I'd love that. That would be a good one. I'd like that. No, people are asking me to run, and there's a whole story about running for a third term. I don't know. I never looked into it. They do say there's a way you can do it, but I don't know about that. But I have not looked into it. I want to do a fantastic job. We have 4 years, just about, almost close to 4 years. Time is flying, but it's still close to 4 years, and we're getting a lot of credit for having done a great job in the first almost 100 days. And we have some big things we're going to be announcing over the next 2 days that you know very well, Peter, and I think it's going to be something that's going to bring a lot of wealth back to our country, tremendous wealth back to our country, actually. And other countries are understanding it because they've been ripping us for 50 years, longer, but they've been ripping us off for years, right from the beginning. And I think this is going to be an amazing, I call it a lot of different names, but it's really, in a sense, it's a rebirth of a country because how we could have afforded to do what we did, we help everybody, and they don't help us. I really, the term I like best probably is the liberation of America. It's the liberation of this country because it's incredible. Look, we have 36 trillion in debt for a reason, and that accumulates over a long period of time. So I think what you're going to be seeing over the next couple of days will be very inspiring to a lot of people. They had a lot of auto plants being built in a certain country. I don't want to mention the country because we get along great with the country, but those plants aren't being built there anymore. They gave them up today and yesterday, day before. And they're building them all now in the United States. And we have many examples, not only auto plants, chip companies from Taiwan are coming in. The biggest, Mr. Wei, he's big. I said, you are a smart guy, aren't you? I've been reading about him over the years, but he controls a large portion of the chip business, as you know. You don't get smarter. They're going to be investing $200 or $300 billion. Apple's investing $500 billion. They always built their places in China. Now he's building here. I think because of you speak to Tim Cook, because of the election, but maybe more importantly because of the tariffs. You know, he's got really an obligation to do it. But we have many, many companies that you haven't even heard of. But I think we'll be at $5 trillion very soon. And if you think about this, we've never been anywhere near that. I don't know if we've ever been at $1 trillion.
What do you mean by that?
We're 500. What do I mean by trillion?
5 trillion. What are you referring to, sir?
I think that we're going to be at $5 trillion of investment. I think you're going to have investments very shortly. We're already 3.5, and we have commitments, verbal commitments for a lot more. And numbers like that have never been done in this country. And it's going to get harder. This is in 2 months. It's really in less than 2 months, because since we've really gone out with it. And we have other interesting things happening. But to me, the whole tariff situation, and essentially they've done that to us for many years. So if we're anywhere near $5 trillion in 2 months, this could be numbers like the country's never seen. And every time you hear a dollar spent, that's another job, because the jobs are coming with it. So auto plants, chip plants, pharmaceuticals, lumber coming in. We have things happening in this country. I'm not sure that they've ever seen it. Steel, you know, we have tariffs on steel. They've been here for a while. Steel and aluminum. Nobody's ever seen anything like we're witnessing now. Nobody's ever seen. I think most of you agree with that. I mean, there's nothing much you can't agree with. We have things happening in terms of jobs and investment, the likes of which I don't think we've ever seen. If you look at, let's say, $4 to $5 trillion in a period of a month and a half, that's even more than you do with your concerts, which are always sold out, right? Nobody's ever seen numbers. And think of it, where Apple's at $500 billion, as I said, but they always used to spend that money in China. Now they're spending it here. That means they're going to build. Now, they don't have any tariffs. Remember, there are no tariffs if you do your product here, if you build whatever it is in the USA. One of the things we're also trying to get is if you buy a car that was built in the USA, you get a deduction on interest. So if you go out and borrow money to buy a car, if it's built in the USA, never been done before, it's a big deduction for people that really aren't used to deductions, frankly, because people that buy cars like that are not big into the world of deductions, and now they're going to learn about deductions. So I think it's going to be great. Yeah.
Mr. President, are you going to move ahead with a universal tariff or different individual tariff rates on a whole variety of different?
Well, you're going to see in 2 days, which is maybe tomorrow night or probably Wednesday. You're going to see, and they're reciprocal. So whatever they charge us, we charge them, but we're being nicer than they were. We have a lot of countries, friend and foe. I always say friend and foe, but the friend in many cases is worse than the foe. They took advantage of us, and we are going to be very nice by comparison to what they were. The numbers will be lower than what they've been charging us, and in some cases maybe substantially lower, but we sort of have a world obligation perhaps. But we're going to be very nice. Relatively speaking, we're going to be very kind.
Mr. President, you met with the chairman.
Somebody said that about me the other day. He said, who doesn't know me very well, they said, "You're such a kind person." And I said, "Say that again." They said, "You're a kind person." I said, "I've never heard that before." It was a weird statement. I was kind.
Who said that?
I've heard of words that, I don't know, I better not tell you. You know, I've been called a lot of things, but it's sort of a different kind of a word. It's like an old-fashioned word, is that it?
Mr. President, you met with the chairman of Stellantis today. Did
Yes.
he ask you for a pause on the auto tariffs?
No.
What was that meeting about?
Just about some of the problems they have with the environmental, which we're going to clean up.
Have any of the automakers...
We're going to probably go back to 1926. If you look, we're going to go back probably to a 2020 standard. So we'll have 2020 standard, and that's just a few years ago. Oh, they're making it so difficult. All over the world they're making it. It doesn't mean a damn bit of difference even for the environment. It doesn't matter. They make it impossible for people to build cars. So we're going to be doing much different. 2020 is a strong standard, but they've taken it to a level now that makes it very difficult to build a car.
Are you hearing?
We're going to be bringing it back to a standard that is a very good environmental standard, but it makes it possible to build it.
Have you heard any concerns from the automakers, though, about the tariffs on parts that will go into effect over the coming weeks, about what that's going to mean for the price of
Well, I gave them a
American-made
big break
cars?
for a month. I didn't charge them anything, for a big month, for that first month. And they brought a lot of material into this country because they could bring it in without tariff. If you look at Canada and Mexico, they were driving hundreds of thousands of cars into the market because they avoid the tariffs by doing it before the tariffs go on, which would be Wednesday. And I looked at I saw some of your shows where cars are lined up for miles and miles. Some of them didn't have fenders on them. Some of them didn't have the roof on yet. They're driving it here brand new. They're driving it in because they want to avoid the tariffs. I let them have that. They sort of took advantage of it because, that wasn't part of the deal, but that's okay.
Are there any
They're
countries?
great American car companies, and so I gave them a little break on that. Yeah.
Are there any countries that you're not targeting on Wednesday?
Well, it depends. I said it's reciprocal. Not everybody has made a fortune, but almost everybody has, but not everybody. And the ones that haven't, we're going to be very nice to them.
And on a separate issue,
Because that word reciprocal is very important. What they do to us, we do to them. Okay.
can I just ask you briefly on President Putin? You said over the weekend, or indicated over the weekend, some frustration with him. How serious are you about imposing oil sanctions? On
No, I
Russian
want
oil?
to see him make a deal so that we stop Russian soldiers and Ukrainian soldiers and other people from being killed. But mostly it's Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. They're losing at least 2,500 human beings, beautiful human beings, a week. And I wanted to stop. And some people would say, why do you worry about Russian soldiers or Ukrainian soldiers? I worry because they're just like you people. They're like us. They're like all of us. And I seem to have an ability to do those things. And if I can do that, I think it's a very worthwhile thing to do. And I think we will. No, I want to make sure that he follows through, and I think he will. I don't want to go secondary tariffs on his oil, but I think, it's something I would do if I thought he wasn't doing the job. I did it with Venezuela, secondary tariffs, and you know what happened? Every boat left the harbor. Did you see that? It was a beautiful thing to see. The whole harbor emptied out. My words weren't even finished. They have these massive ships. They're actually taking the hoses and dumping them into there. They couldn't get out of there fast enough because they know I don't play games. So I think he's going to live up to what he told me, and I think he's going to fulfill his part of the deal. Now, then you have Zelensky, and hopefully he's going to live up. I see he's trying to renegotiate the rare earth. We did something because, as you know, the Europeans get paid back the money that they gave, and we don't, because Biden is an incompetent president. And he should have asked for rare earth, or he should have asked for the loans to be guaranteed in some form. That's what Europe did. Europe is in for probably $100 billion. And we're in for $350 billion. So we're in for more than 3 times. And now you could make it a little bit less than that, but it doesn't matter, whatever the number. We're in for substantially more than Europe. We could be in for $350 billion. They have no idea because Biden wasn't a good bookkeeper except for himself. And what happens is we made a deal for rare earth. It was all done. And I heard through you, I haven't spoken to them yet, but through you I heard that they're now saying, well, I'll only do that deal if we get into NATO or something to that effect. Well, that was never, number one, discussed. Number two, I think it's going to be long before Putin, they said you're not going into NATO. And it could be, that's probably the reason the war started, actually.
We're 4 hours away from a very special election. Wisconsin, Florida. I want to share your thoughts on Republican voters to not sleep on this.
Yeah.
2 very important races you got.
Well, it's a big race, Supreme Court race in Wisconsin. It's taking place essentially as it was early voting. So we'll see what happens. It's a big race. I love Wisconsin. We won Wisconsin. Republicans typically don't do very well in Wisconsin, but I did. I actually won it twice. I actually probably won it 3 times to be exact.
They played their side.
Not probably. I won it 3 times. We had a rigged election the second time, but that's, one of those things. We had to make this one too big to rig. Would you agree with that, Brian?
Yes,
too big
sir.
to rig?
Yes, sir.
So anyway, there's a big race that I hope you get out and vote for the Republican. The woman is a radical left lunatic. and let's see who wins. But the woman will be very bad. And you know, Wisconsin's a big state politically, and the Supreme Court has a lot to do with elections in Wisconsin. So if whoever it is that's running, including, you know, even Senate races, etc., but whoever it is in 4 years that runs, having Wisconsin is a very big, you know, we won it early and big, but winning Wisconsin's a big deal. So therefore, the Supreme Court choice, that is the one you're talking about right now. It's a big race. It's going to be announced fairly shortly.
President Trump, on TikTok, big week deadlines, you got Liberation Day and the TikTok deadline.
Yeah,
this
we
week.
do, which I can extend if I want, but we have a lot of enthusiasm for TikTok, for buying it. I think TikTok is good. I used it I was a great TikTok guy, and we won by 36 points, the youth. You know, we won the youth, which Republicans don't do. Maybe it's because Kid Rock likes Trump, I don't know, but we won the youth by 36 points, and I attribute some of that to TikTok.
Is the TikTok deal, the negotiations now, tied to a bigger tariff deal with China?
No, but you know, it could be. I mean, you know, I've used tariffs for lots of different reasons, but I could see, you know, 1 point in tariffs with China, big country, would be probably worth more than all of TikTok, as valuable as TikTok is. It's big stuff. So there's a great example. That's a great question, actually. I'm a very flexible person. I could use that for that. Like, maybe I'll take a couple of points off if I get approvals for something. I haven't done it. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't. But it's a very good question. Peter, you're very good.
Thank you. You'll love this one.
Go ahead.
It's not front page news, but I am just curious. What is your thought about Tiger Woods now becoming part of the broader Trump family?
Well, I love Tiger, and I love Vanessa, and they had a great relationship. I happen to think the relationship with my son, I happen to think the relationship was hurt very badly by the witch hunt that went on, Russia, and all the crap that they put Don through, who knew nothing about it. But Vanessa and Don had a very good relationship. They have incredible children, 5 incredible children, all good athletes, all great students, they're like great. And they broke up, you know, quite a while ago, and which was to me very sad, because I think they're both great, Don and Vanessa. And Tiger actually called me a few months ago, and they have a very special, very good relationship with Tiger. I played golf with him a couple of times over the last month, and he's a fantastic guy and a fantastic athlete. And he told me about it, and I said, Tiger, that's good. That's good. I'm very happy for both. I just let them both be happy. Let them both be happy. They're both great.
So to follow up on China, China, South Korea, and Japan say they're going to work together in cooperation to respond to the tariffs that you're going to put into effect this week. Are you concerned that this move of the tariffs this week could push some of the United States' closest allies to work with China?
No, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. Yeah.
Mr. President, can I ask you
I
about
think they have a
something?
chance of doing better, actually, with the tariffs. It can actually help them in a certain way. And I think a lot of them will drop their tariffs because, you know, they've been unfairly tariffing the United States for years. And if you look at the European Union on cars, the European Union already dropped their tariff down to 2.5%. It was announced a couple of days ago, which is what which is a very small tariff. The United States charged very little. And I think I heard that India just a little while ago is going to be dropping its tariffs very substantially. And I said, why didn't somebody do this a long time ago? A lot of countries are going to be dropping their tariffs.
About something that happened in France today, Mr. President. Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader, got convicted in court and is now banned from running for office for 5 years. Do you have a comment?
That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. I know all about it, and a lot of people thought she wasn't going to be convicted of anything, and I don't know if it means conviction, but she was banned for running for 5 years, and she's the leading candidate. That sounds like this country. That sounds very much like this country. Okay, anybody else?
Mr. President, you've been presented with a bunch of proposals for tariffs by your advisors that were talking about that idea publicly.
And who?
That your advisors have presented ideas
They do.
about tariffs and what to do in the next 2 days. Have you settled?
Well, you're going to see. I've settled, a long time ago.
You do.
But we talk about it. We talk about it a lot. We want to do what's right for the country and even the world. You know, it affects the world, not just this country. This has been the piggy bank for the entire world. So it really does affect the world, and that's important to me also. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. President, in the past you have said that you want the quick return of Austin Tice, a Marine Corps veteran and a journalist who went missing in Syria over 12 years ago.
Yeah.
Have efforts been made to locate Austin Tice been extended beyond Syria, including potential leads in Iran? And do you have plans to get in touch with Ms. Deborah Tice, the mother of Austin Tice? And also at the same time, organizations like Hostage Aid Worldwide have been on the ground in Syria searching for Austin Tice for many years. Can I get your comment on the future, potential future plans to relocate, to locate Austin Tice and to bring him home finally?
So we've been looking, as you know, for Austin for years. I don't know about Biden. I don't think Biden was looking for anything, but we were, and there's been virtually no sign. You know that. There's been no sign of Austin. An incredible young guy. Be less young now. I mean, it's been a long time. It's been many, many years. The mother is fantastic. She's a very committed mother that her whole life is to find her son, who was in Syria and just disappeared off the face of the earth. So, you know, a lot of bad things happen. But we're always, you know, we will never, until we find out something definitive, one way or the other, we'll never stop looking for him. But we have been, and the response, it's just a lot of dead ends. He's been gone for a long time. The problem is there's never been a sighting. You know, sometimes you'll have somebody you're looking for him and there's a sighting. There's never been a sighting of Austin, but we are out there and we have great respect for his family and for his mother. She's been unbelievable. Yeah,
Mr. President, a question about...
no, behind you.
No, apologies.
Yes, you've had outreach with the leaders of Russia and China. You made an outreach to Iran. When are you going to plan to reach out to North Korea and Kim Jong-un? Anytime in the near future?
Well, I do. I have a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un. Now, you people hate to hear that, but it's very important. I got along with him fantastically, as you know. It started off very rough, very nasty. Little rocket man, the whole thing was a nasty deal. And then one day we got a call that they'd like to meet. We met. We have a great relationship. And yeah, we have, there is communication, yeah.
Mr.
I think it's
President,
very important. You know, he's a big nuclear nation, and he's a very smart guy. I got to know him very well. You remember I put my foot across the line, and then I walked across the line. I don't know if Secret Service was thrilled with that. They actually wasn't. They were not too thrilled. But I have a very good relationship with him. Yeah, we'll probably do something at some point. Yeah, please.
who's on your short list, Mr. President, to replace Elise Stefanik as U.S. Ambassador to the UN?
So we have a lot of good people that want it. First of all, Elise is fantastic, and I just don't want to take chances where you guys saying, how is the election going? We have a congressional election that's a little bit close. I guess the one is in good shape, but the other one's a little bit close. But Randy Fine is a great guy. They're both good candidates. They're very good. But it's, you know, a little bit, we want to be careful. And Elise is very popular in her district, and so am I. We won by a lot of points, and so did she. And there's a lot of people that wanted to run for it, but we have no idea, are they going to win? I think it's just security. And I said, Elise, what about going back? Because they love you there, and she's going to take a big leadership position with Mike Johnson and the group, the speaker. And I can tell you that for the replacement, we have a lot of people that have asked about it and would like to do it. David Friedman, Rick Grinnell, and maybe 30 other people. Everyone loves that position. That's a star-making position. And so we'll see what happens. But we have a lot of people that are interested in going to the United Nations, as you can imagine. Yeah.
I just want to get a quick music question. Favorite song to play live is what? And then my question for you, Mr. President, your favorite rally you did last year, 2024. What was your favorite one?
Favorite song to play live?
Yeah, favorite song to play live.
Oh, that's a tough one. It'd have to be one of the hits, probably Cowboy or Ball at the Bar. There's a song that I've played every night that was never a singular hit that I probably should not say the words to in this office right now.
I think pretty much.
You never met
He
a
does,
certain
by the
person
way,
like
his
me.
rallies are amazing. He does great and gets big crowds. He's really a star when it comes to that. He is a very talented guy. I would say maybe Madison Square Garden,
Yeah.
because anybody that was there, the owner of the garden, Jim Dolan, who's, to me, always been terrific. He said this, he's never said anything like it. We had, when you announce Madison Square Garden, it's a big arena, but we sell out big arenas. We sold out in Milwaukee, we sold out at every big arena. We never had empty seats. It's amazing. They talk about Bernie Sanders gets 2,000 or 3,000 people. Everyone said, these crowds, I get 107,000 people in New Jersey. In Butler, PA, we had over 100,000 the second time. We had 55,000 the first time. We have big crowds. I would say Madison Square Garden because I grew up in New York and the garden is great. Jim Dolan treated us well, but everybody said that because I think I could have filled it up 10 times. We had hundreds of thousands of people that were stacked all the way back to the Hudson River and on the other direction back to Fifth Avenue. Nobody's ever seen. I don't mean with a line. I mean like 50 deep. Like 50 deep this way. The streets were closed, the whole thing, it was crazy. And when you take that, you want to do well at Madison Square Garden. You don't want to have empty seats. But we could have sold it out, Brian, 10 times, and everybody knew it. And I think we got a good indication that that's where the election was going. And we won every swing state, and we won by millions of votes. It was a great election, yeah.
Mr. President, the U.S. military transferred 17 individuals to El Salvador overnight. Did you discuss with your team whether these deportations would run afoul of any recent court orders?
No, I do want to thank, however, the president. He has been unbelievable, and in relation to us. But I think that our people have done an incredible job. I got elected on the basis of getting bad people out of our country that shouldn't be here, very dangerous people out of our country, and that's what I did. And then you have a judge that wants to take over, and I can't imagine it can be allowed. If it was up to him, they'd all be put back in our country. These are killers. These are drug lords. These are really bad people. But I want to thank the president of El Salvador because he's done an amazing job. You saw,
Elon Musk's special government tenure is coming to an end, 130 days, I think another month.
Yeah.
Do you want him to stay longer, or is it time for him to go back to running his companies in Europe?
Well, I think he's amazing, but I also think he's got a big company to run, and so at some point he's going to be going back. He wants to.
Would you want to keep him around?
But I'd keep him as long as I could keep him. He's a very talented guy. I love very smart people. And he's very smart, and he's done a good job. Doge has, we found numbers that nobody can even believe, like 400 billion, 500 billion. It could be close to $1 trillion by the time they end on different things. And he's led the charge, and you've seen a lot of his people. And these are people that joined up. I always say the high IQ people. I like high IQ people. And they've done a great job. No, at some point, Elon's going to want to go back to his company. I will say he's got, despite the way he's been treated, so he's an American patriot, but the way he's been treated with Tesla is just terrible. It's just terrible.
Once he goes
in fact,
back-
you have a Tesla, and you love it. You love it. He was saying before he bought a Tesla, he loved it. A lot of people are buying Teslas, I think, and I hope they are. He should not be treated that way. He's done an incredible service.
But once he goes back, is Doge going to keep operating even without Elon here?
Well, I can't tell you that. I can say this, that a lot of the people that are working with Doge are the secretaries, the heads of the various agencies, and they've learned a lot, and they're dealing with the Doge people. I think some of them may try and keep the Doge people with them, but, at a certain point, I think it will end. But they have also gotten a big education, and they're doing a really good job. There'll be a point at which the secretaries will be able to do this work and do it very, as we say, with the scalpel. And that's what we want. Yeah, Jeff?
Mr. President, have you had any updates on the U.S. soldiers missing in Lithuania?
I have.
Can you give us an update?
So 3 are no longer with us, and 1 is unfortunately probably in the same category, but they haven't declared that yet. it was a very heavy truck, like I told you, but I mean, really heavy, that lifted the heaviest equipment. And it would seem that the bank of a lake collapsed, you know, the weight is so big. And it was at night, and it was very cold weather, ice, a lot of ice. And it's possibly slipped, and the weight is so enormous of this thing. It's a massively heavy vehicle. And if they slipped a little bit, it's probably what happened, and it flipped. And 3 are gone, and 1 is missing.
On a separate topic, follow-up on immigration, did you see the video of the Tufts University student who was taken off the street by ICE agents last week in hoodies and masks? There's been a lot of criticism of that. Are you comfortable with how that was handled?
Well, I haven't really looked at it in any detail, but I will. I mean, I have seen it quickly, but not. I wouldn't want to comment on. Yeah, but
Yeah, Mr. President, would you be able to confirm recent reporting that you are making plans to go to Saudi Arabia next month? And
Yeah.
if so, why is Saudi Arabia so important?
So I have a very good relationship with the Middle East. In fact, if you look at Michigan, I won the vote by a lot. People were a little surprised. And I have a very good relationship with Mohammed and the king. His son is Mohammed. He's great. Crown Prince, actually he's Prime Minister too. He's got a lot of good titles. But he's great. And the king has been wonderful. And if you remember, last time I went to Saudi Arabia, I put him first on the list because they agreed to buy $450 billion worth of American goods, military and otherwise. And they did. And it was an unbelievable day. It was in this gorgeous ballroom, and companies were there from many, probably 100 companies. And they were given anywhere from 40 or $50 million to less. And more, actually. Okay, some of them were given numbers that were just many times that amount. I think we had a couple of $20 billion deals and big stuff. And it's a very rich country because of oil. And we are a very rich country ultimately when we straighten it up because of oil. Oil is always good. And I agreed to do it again, and they've agreed to spend close to $1 trillion of money in our American companies, which to me means jobs. So they're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars giving them to American companies that are going to be making equipment for Saudi Arabia and other places in the Middle East. And for that, I think it's worth it. I did it last time, $450 billion, and the press was there. It was one of the most unique days I've ever seen, where companies would get up and you're getting $20 billion. The name of the company, the chairman were all there, every chairman and top person in the company. You remember that, Peter? I don't know if you were there. You might be too young for that.
I was on the Democratic campaign trail.
Oh, that was boring. This was a much better deal. But it was amazing, actually. It was an amazing day. We sold and we partook in $450 billion worth of investment into American companies. And they announced the company, the amount of money, $1 billion, $5 billion, $25 billion. And the chairman of the company, many of whom, you know, well-known figures, prestigious figures, great business leaders, they went up, they shook the hand of somebody, and they would sit down, and we just had a big investment made. So it was a record. Nobody ever beat it before. $450 billion worth of jobs. I view it as jobs more than anything else. And now we're close to $1 trillion, so it's more than double the number that we did when I first came to office.
And this trip takes place next month.
It could be next month, maybe a little bit later, yeah. And we're going to Qatar also. And also we're going to possibly a couple of other countries. UAE is very important. It's a great leader in UAE. And I had his brother here the other night, if you saw that. We had a wonderful guy, a wonderful family. So we'll probably stop at UAE and Qatar, and as I used to call it, Qatar. Nobody's ever told me right or wrong. I always like to say Qatar, but it's Qatar. They like to say Qatar. And Saudi Arabia, the 3 of them, and then we'll go other places also. But in the Middle East, those seem to be the 3. And again, tremendous amounts of jobs will be created that in those 2 or 3 days. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, out that door. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys.
Live, the Oval Office press conference, the President of the United States signing a very important executive order ending ticket gouging at entertainment venues. These bots buy up a bunch of tickets and they sell them at double, triple the price, making it harder for everyday Americans to go to concerts. Donald Trump diving into that debate. A lot of news in this press conference. He said they're soon going to be at $5 trillion of investments committed to the United States as a result of tariffs. $5 trillion.
Yeah.
That's a huge
I feel like
number.
it was just $2 trillion a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole year.
It was.
It was.
Yeah.
Literally, maybe just 10 days ago.
Yeah.
He said he was rolling back the EPA mileage standards, what they're known as the CAFE standards, the mileage efficiency standards, to 2020 after talking to automakers today, because the ones that the Biden administration said are just too aggressive. They can't technologically be met. That was a big moment. He weighed in on a lot of the world's crises, said he's going to the Middle East and Qatar at the very end there. So a lot of news today, Amanda, and what was supposed to be just a formal signing episode.
Yeah. At the beginning, it seemed like he might just take a few questions and then let it go, but then he was on a roll, as he usually is.
Yeah.
In good spirits.
He was definitely in good spirits and having a lot of fun and taking questions. It took probably more questions than President Biden took in the last 6 months of his presidency. Really remarkable.
Yeah.
I want to turn to one thing, because we got it just before we got on air, and I think it's really important. We talk about accountability on the show all the time, and the efforts to hold a wayward Washington to account are spreading this time to the courts. Some very big developments today. This is specifically targeting judges that Republicans believe are activists in exceeding their authorities in an effort to thwart President Trump. Just the News has confirmed that Congressman Andy Biggs, a member of the House Judiciary Committee, Amanda, just filed a novel resolution to remove U.S. District Judge James Boasberg. That's the man who is blocking Trump's deportation of illegal alien gang members under the Alien Enemies Act. It is a novel argument and one he debuted here last week on this very show. Biggs not pursuing articles of impeachment, which would require, I think, 2/3 of the Senate to convict for removal. Instead, he introduced a resolution to declare that Judge Boasberg is violating the Constitution's judicial standard of good behavior and therefore should be removed. Biggs argues judges who have conflicts of interest or who rule contrary to the Constitution are engaged in bad behavior, thus in violation of the Constitution, and this should be removed, and they should be removed by a simple majority vote. He explained this last week. He did it a little bit ago. Just the News confirmed it. Another big moment today, Chuck Grassley, the chairman of that powerful Senate Judiciary Committee, introduced a legislation to clip judges' wings, limiting their authority so that they can only issue temporary restraining orders in their own district and involving just the litigants in the case. They can't go nationwide, only limited to their district and the litigants. That's another big clipping of the wings. So a little bit of accountability today.
Yeah, and look, this is under the purview of Congress because in our Constitution, it only sets out the Supreme Court, obviously as the highest court in the land, but its only branch. Everything else, all of the other inferior courts are under the jurisdiction of Congress. So I think that's a great remedy. I love the localized one. That one to me is the best one because even if you remove Judge Boasberg, I don't know if that sends a strong enough message. There's got to be that you're just fixing the symptom there. You're not fixing the problem. I think that making sure that those injunctions and stays are only localized and only pertaining to the litigant parties, that's the way to go.
A lot during the Oval Office press conference, the president talked about the elections. We got 3 big elections tomorrow night. Wisconsin, and then 2 open seats in Florida. Two members of Congress joined the cabinet. Now there's 2 open seats there. Wisconsin is for control of the Supreme Court, which will dictate the rules of the election in 26 and 28. Earlier today, we had a chance to interview one of the men running for those open Florida seats, State Senator Randy Fine. He was a really great interview. We're going to throw to that right now.
Joining us now, the man who is looking to take that seat down in Florida, one of 2 that are in the special election tomorrow, Randy Fine. Randy, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You have served the state of Florida as a state senator. I know President Trump has endorsed you. The media says that this could break any way or the other. What are you feeling?
Well, we feel really optimistic. Look, this is an area that loves President Trump. Democrats are mad because every time President Trump wins, they lose. And so what we need people to do is go and vote. They can go to voterandyfine.com, find their precinct, and they need to just go and vote tomorrow. If our people turn out, we're going to have a huge win.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Now, Democrats have put a lot of money into your opponent, and yet you've been able to hold the ground firm. Tell us a little bit about the Democrat strategy and what it tells us about their desperation.
Well, let's talk about the money. First off, we've hugely outraised them from the district and frankly from Florida. That money is not from anywhere around here. It's, if we can trace it, it's from Seattle or San Francisco or Washington or New York. But given it's all from Act Blue, we don't even know if it's from the United States. Now, the second thing you have to do is what are they spending it on? I put my own money into this race. He's taken money out. I didn't even know you could do this, but he's paying himself a salary and living in a $51,000 Airbnb luxury rental while he's running for office. So think about what a scummy thing that is to do. To ask people for money, you tell them you're using it to run for office, and then you pay it to yourself. And if you go through the spending, it's all sort of griftiness. The race is very simple. It's, do they want a Donald Trump endorsed candidate who's going to stick with the America First agenda, or do they want a Bernie Sanders endorsed proud socialist who's going to blow it all up and try to impeach President Trump? I think the voters of this district are smart. I think they'll go to my website, voterandyfine.com, find their precinct, and they'll vote tomorrow.
Well, and you mentioned President Trump's endorsement. I know that your policies probably reflect a lot of his policies. If you win this seat and you head up to Capitol Hill, what are some of those major agenda items that you want to focus on when you're there?
Sure. I was the second legislator in Florida to endorse President Trump. And I think that's why I've got a great relationship there, because I put up with a lot of grief, frankly, for doing it. But I believed in him and I believe in his agenda. The things I want to work on is I want to make sure every criminal illegal alien's thrown out of the country. I want to bring down prices, whether it's home prices, inflation, homeowners insurance, those things that he's working on. And I want to make sure that we end the wars that are all over the world that didn't happen when Donald Trump was president for the first time. He's done an extraordinary job over the last couple of months getting things started, and I'm excited to be there to help take things to the next level.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Randy, when we were running into November, we had a good sense of what voters were thinking. Inflation, insecurity, and insanity were the three things. Let's get women out of men's bathrooms. Let's get the border secured and our city secured, and let's get inflation down. 3 months later, you've been out on the campaign trail nonstop. Have any of those priorities changed? Have you detected any new voter priorities when you're out in the field?
I haven't. I think if you looked at the voters of the 6th Congressional District, they would like President Trump as much now as they did then, maybe more. The difference is intensity of feeling. Democrats are really, really angry. They're really mad because we're blowing up their world. You know, they want an open border. They want socialism. They want $50 million boxes of condoms going to who knows where. They want 300-year-olds to get Social Security. And President Trump is fixing all of these things. And so they're angry. And so they're motivated. On our side, people to some degree feel like everything's fine because Donald Trump's president. So it's our job to make sure they understand that if this guy wins, we could lose control of Congress. President Trump gets impeached, and that's why they got to go vote tomorrow.
Yeah, great point.
All right, so everybody shows up on Election Day in the general election. It's always hard to get people out. I mean, even for the midterms, but especially for a special election. What is turnout looking like for you, and how are you getting voters to really get off their fannies and head to the polls?
Well, 82% of Republicans still have to vote. And I will tell you this, we have been calling and calling and calling and knocking on doors like crazy to make sure they know there's a vote. And what Republicans tell us is we're going to vote on Election Day. And so we anticipate a huge day tomorrow. And if our folks get out and vote, we're going to win. But they have to know where to vote. And that's why they can go to voterandyfine.com, click on the county that they're from. There's 6 counties in this district. Make sure they know where their precinct is and vote. And by the way, I not only want them to vote, I need them to take their friends and their family to vote. Because if our side turns out, we're going to have a huge win tomorrow night.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, you've had a lot of people in there pitching in, help. Moms for Liberty's been out there. You got Byron Donalds and Ben Shapiro tonight in a tele-rally. The ground game that the Republicans have learned to build over the last few years is really impressive. It's caught up to the Democrats in a lot of ways, particularly early voting. Tell us a little bit about the surrogates and all the help that is out there in these final 24 hours.
Well, the best thing about my help is it's largely volunteers. The guy I'm running against has had to pay for all of his. And I'll just tell you one story because you'll find it interesting. One of his paid door knockers got tired of walking and going door to door, so he went and he stole a bike out of somebody's garage. And when he got arrested, it wasn't the first, second, or third time he'd been arrested. It was the 20th time, including multiple felonies for gun crimes. So, you know, they're hiring sort of I don't know, dangerous people, and they're sending them out into people's neighborhoods. We're making tens of thousands of calls. I've got the RNC here with me today, the vice chair of the RNC, and they came to help. We've got National Federated Republican Women helping, people from all over the country, and they're volunteers, and they're doing it because they understand what's at stake. If they can be here to help, then the Republicans in the 6th congressional district can go vote tomorrow, because we can't let President Trump down.
Yeah. Sir, I know the Democrats are obviously focusing on these 2 Florida seats so that they can fix that majority for themselves or get it a little bit closer for Democrats. But the media is really, really focusing on this. Does it seem to you like they're using this almost as a harbinger for midterms or what can happen next time around?
Well, I think the media is desperately looking for ways to take shots at President Trump. And when this guy raised $10 million from who knows where, compared to my million, which, by the way, isn't bad in a 9-week campaign. I can't get money from Act Blue where nobody knows where it's coming from. I think that they saw an opportunity to turn it into something. And it is true that Democrats are angry, and that is a factual statement. But I think people were mostly looking to take a shot at President Trump. We're very confident tomorrow's going to be great. Voters just got to go to my website. I'll say it again, voterandyfine.com, pick their county, find their precinct, and show up tomorrow. And if that happens, we're going to have a monster win that President Trump can be proud of. Our people can't let President Trump down. They have to vote.
Yeah, it matters. You got to walk to the polls, drive to the polls, bring your friends to the polls, get people out. So you were in the legislature a long time. Tomorrow probably will be your last day if you win this election. About a year ago it was, if I remember correctly, you gave a really remarkable speech on the floor about gender-affirming care for minors. Can you remind people of that speech? It went viral. It was a very important speech, and I think it helped give people confidence to lean into that issue.
Yeah, no, today's actually my last day as a state senator. I had to resign today, actually having only been a state senator for a few months. I didn't expect to do this when President Trump asked me to. But look, I have prided myself on being a fighter for children. And what you reference is the Florida legislature led the way. When I found out there was a doctor in Miami who went by the trade name Dr. Titus Deletus, who was telling teenage girls on TikTok that if they just cut their body parts off, their lives would be fine, I got angry about it. And I gave a speech in which, and you're right, it did go viral because I tried to explain why our children are under siege. In a world where Democrats tell little kids that they don't know what bathroom to go to, they don't know who they are, they should cut their body parts off, they should read books about sex when they're 6 years old, and then they wonder why our kids have so many problems. Democrats, and the speech was about this, that Democrats don't believe in the idea of childhood, of innocence, and letting kids grow up in safety and peace. And what I said is there is evil in this world, and we fight it every day. And that is what I will do in Washington when I get there.
I was in Pennsylvania when you gave that speech, and hundreds of miles away from Florida, people were talking. It was a very powerful speech, and you should be commended for it. It's really amazing.
And tell everybody the website again.
It's voterandyfine.com. You can go there. You click on the link to get the special election information. You click on your county because there are 6 of them in this district. And then you find your precinct by typing in your address. Everybody needs to know where to vote. Make a plan. Get out there. Polls open really early in the morning. There's no excuse. And we want President Trump to look at the results tomorrow night and feel really great that this district didn't let him down. I'm not going to let him down. And I know that Republicans in this district won't let him down either.
Well, I know it has been a whirlwind 9 weeks, and we look forward to following all of the election information coming out tomorrow out of the state of Florida. State Senator Randy Fine, thanks so much for being here, sir.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Great to have you.
All right. Yep.
Big election day tomorrow.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah,
We're going to be keeping an eye on, and there will be news alerts throughout the day on all of that. We're going to take a quick break. John earlier had a conversation with one of our frequent guests on the show from the State Department, former 9th Circuit clerk, and now one of our favorite folks over at AMAC. That's after this.
Welcome back, America. We just got a few minutes left. We saved a good one for the last one for tonight. He's the former Assistant Secretary of State, former U.S. Appeals Court clerk, and now the national spokesman for AMAC, our good friend, Bobby Charles, and also the author of one of my favorite books this past year, Cherish America. Bobby, welcome back to the show.
What a blast to be with you guys. Always.
We love you on so many different fronts. You bring so much wisdom. I want to start with the elections. It's off year. There's the Wisconsin Supreme Court that could really dictate what the next couple elections look like, plus 2 open seats. What's your expectation for tomorrow?
I guess I'm very optimistic because I think we're kind of in the tailwinds from President Trump's win, and I think people know this really counts. If they don't know, I want to just emphasize again, turnout is everything. It's everything in every election, but if there was ever one that really sort of capped it, it's this one, because we cannot lose the House. We cannot lose in Wisconsin. And there are moments in American history when it's existential. And, if you're a student of history, you can go back in time and see them. But the bottom line is we got to win. People have to turn out, and that's critical.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier to one of the candidates, and his story kind of reminds me, I'm sure you guys remember, after Trump was elected, the Ossoff election in Georgia for Senate. And this was a guy who had funding coming in from all over the country, especially Hollywood. And it was another one of these races after a Republican win for the White House, and the media just hung their hat on it. Do you anticipate that that's why they are placing such an emphasis on these now?
Sure. I mean, the Democrats have a history of pouring huge dark money, and I won't name the groups, but we all know what they are, into these states. And I think what we have to do is remember that destiny is in our own hands. If we choose to turn out in numbers, we will clearly preserve freedom and preserve our hold. If we don't, then it'll be bad on us.
Bobby, I want to turn to the issue that's really beginning to consume Washington, and that is the behavior of judges, these activist judges, very independent, imposing nationwide restraining orders well outside of their districts today. Andy Biggs introducing a resolution to remove Judge Boasberg, not through impeachment, but for violating the standards, the Constitution's standards for judges to be of good behavior. Chuck Grassley doing limitations tonight on judges so they can't rule outside their district. You got 2 or 3 other lawmakers introducing legislation. They're on the fast track. What's the right approach here?
Well, listen, as a longtime litigator, and as you both mentioned earlier, a U.S. Court of Appeals clerk, this Boasberg judge is sort of emblematic of a problem that has been creeping on us for 10 years. And first part of it is that these judges have decided that they can play president for a day or more than a day. They decide that they're going to come out with a ruling in a district, literally in a district, which is a small area in the country, and there are probably 600 or 800 of these judges. They decide that ruling is now going to apply to the entire country, and that they're going to be able to be king for a day. And that is not what our founders ever intended. In fact, our founders left to the United States Congress not just the determination of whether a judge was on good behavior, because they are only allowed to serve on good behavior, but also whether or not there would even be inferior judges. All they did is put the Supreme Court in place. So it is Congress that has put the circuit courts in place and put the district courts in place. And these judges, this one in particular, just, in my opinion, it's a judge that's jumped the fence. I mean, he's just decided that he's going to run around wherever he wants, say whatever he wants. And, I look at his pedigree and I say, you've been in too many ivory towers. I've been in some of those ivory towers, but I also grew up in a place where we chop wood and we understand everyday issues. And this guy just doesn't understand. What if those 300 gang members who are actually part of a foreign terrorist organization were brought back and put on his front lawn? Okay, you think he'd be happy? You think that? No, I don't think so. And so the bottom line is, this is a judge that's feeling his oats and decided that he wants to play president, and it doesn't work. Now, let me add one last point, if I may. He's using his role to defeat the president's prerogatives under the Alien Enemies Act. The Alien Enemies Act has a provision in it that says that an invasion or an incursion, a predatory incursion, validate or allow a president to send people out of the country. They become alien enemies. There is no case law that says that this president cannot do that. And I would just encourage people to remember that when the preceding president, President Biden, encouraged Russia to make a little incursion on Ukraine, Ukraine was fully entitled to try to oust Russia after that. We have criminal foreign terrorist groups in this country trafficking in fentanyl and killing people, and the people that were exported or deported were actually those people. So I think the president is well within his Article 2 and statutory rights, and I think this judge may find that he was on bad behavior.
Yeah. And Judge Boasberg, that judicial wheel just keeps stopping on him when it's a case related to Trump. It's amazing how that happens. John mentioned Senator Grassley's proposal with regards to keeping those injunctions localized and pertaining only to that case. Do you think that's probably the best overall remedy?
I think having Congress take the action now short circuits bringing it to the Supreme Court, where it would be decided in that direction. There's just no question. These judges, liberal, leftist, activist judges, are just out of control. In fact, I think the former Speaker of the House, Speaker Gingrich, is going to testify tomorrow on this topic. It's unconscionable to see these judges decide that they have Article 2 and even Article 1 authorities. They don't. They only have their Article 3 authorities at the leisure or the pleasure of the Congress.
Yeah, such a great point. Bobby, you do so many amazing things for us, including AMAC, which does so many great things around the ground, helping out all across this country. Folks, if you want to join Bobby and me as longtime members at AMAC, go to amac.us/justnews. They have some of the best benefits you'll ever have. Plus, you're joining a community of patriots. I love it. I do lots of events with them. And this month only, you can get a 5-year membership. I'm a 5-year card carrying member for just $31. That's 47% off. And yes, the 47 is for the 47th president. Go check it out today. amac.us/justnews. They're such great folks. All right. That show ran out of us pretty quick because of that press conference. We'll be back tomorrow.